Alex here with a video on the flaws of the First Amendment. This probably would apply to a lot of, um, amendments in the Constitution. They are actually really great. They matter a lot, tremendously. And I just think that with some of them, people have taken it too far. And I'm going to explain this in a way that connects to high conflict child custody, more specifically to child custody legislation. And then I'll also explain why I'm saying this in the first place. My understanding, remember I'm not an attorney, my understanding of the First Amendment is to not punish people for saying what their opinion is. And that goes both criminally, so you can't be prosecuted, and then that also goes into civilly, so you can't be sued for your opinion. That's the whole point. People have opinions, they should be allowed to say what their opinion is. Obviously, things get murky when you go into, on the civil end of it, you got defamation, which includes libel and slander. And the whole point there is that you're not stating an opinion, you're stating some kind of fact as it being true. I guess like one example that's obvious is to say somebody is like a convicted criminal of some sort, and there are certain crimes that are especially damaging. That's not an opinion. That's saying something actually happened to somebody, and you're getting people to sort of treat them a certain way based on what the truth is not. So, people understand that. And then for the criminal angle, there's this like old, really, really old discussion about some guy who yelled fire in a theater and everybody ran out and people died because they got trampled or something. I guess that's on the criminal end of it. And then there's obviously things like government secrecy. So like the CIA and the NSA make people sign stuff. And so, yeah, there's limits to it. What I was going to say is that with this video, I wanted to talk about how people are getting upset about social media, both Twitter and Facebook. And they're saying that their right to free speech is curtailed and that the platforms are not friendly to the First Amendment anymore. I guess Facebook, they call Facebook, I don't know what their official name for it is. People call it Facebook jail when they get like blocked for a while from posting anything. And then there was some statement from the Twitter of CEO. I guess the old CEO's gone. There's a new CEO, and he said something like, Twitter is not bound by the First Amendment, which is true. It's a company. That's something that the government deals with. And it's upsetting people. And here's where I'm going to get to the point of this video, which is people are taking it too far. The thing about what the social media platforms, I think, are doing is they're starting to... Now, there's a lot of other stuff with regards to let's make the government happy because they're pissed off at how elections are being impacted by social media. Fine, we're not going to talk about that, though. I'm going to talk about regular people and how regular people are starting to get annoyed or have been getting annoyed to the point where they even leave the platforms because of, I guess, what I'll call free speech pollution. People are just saying things that other people don't want to see. And I think a lot of people say, well, just scroll past it or block the person or ignore the person. This is easier said than done. That requires work. That means the person who is scrolling has to right click and left click. And, people just don't want to see some of the content that's being spewed on social media. And so it's not so much, and again, guys, hang in there because later on I'm going to go into the legislation aspect. But anyway, it's not so much the fact that it's not possible for people to kind of shut off other accounts. It's that it requires them to do things that they shouldn't have to do. It's a nuisance. It's like a telemarketer. Yeah, you could just hang up on them, but you still had to pick up the phone, listen, see who it was before you could make the decision to hang up. So if you're getting one of these calls a month, not such a big deal. If you're getting one a day, now it's starting to get irritating. If you're getting 2 or 3 a day, it's driving you crazy. It doesn't matter that you don't have to listen to him. It doesn't matter that you don't have to agree. It doesn't matter that you don't have to talk to him. You still have to stop what you're doing, take some information, like as in who is this and what do they have to say, and then hang up on him. That's the most extreme thing you can do. That's going to take the least amount of time. There's new things on the phones now where they'll actually say spam call and stuff like that, but you still have to get the phone. You still have to look at it. That's the point that I'm trying to get with the First Amendment getting a little bit in people's heads. They're taking a little too far. And it's like I mentioned, it's almost like pollution. It's a nuisance. It's irritating. And the thing is, Other people don't want to see it. And that's one of the things that is, I think, difficult for people to understand. A lot of people think they have the right to go onto the platforms, say something, and that it should be distributed by the algorithm to whoever. Other people don't want to see it. So it's not so much the platform itself, at least there's multiple different dimensions to this. I'm going to leave all that other stuff out to the other channels that are talking about it. I'm just going to talk about the nuisance factor and the stuff that ordinary people don't want to waste their time with. That's all I'm going to focus on with this video. And then I'll go into the other stuff. People don't want to have to even look at it. And so what I'm trying to lead into here is that it's one thing to think it's your right to say stuff. It's another thing to think that it's your right for other people to see it. Other people have rights too. Other people don't necessarily have to listen to what somebody on social media is trying to say. Other people have time. They don't want their time wasted. They want to see certain things. And that's one of the things that I think social media is starting to realize. If you look at like ordinary news groups and print media, they control what they publish for a reason. That's the same thing with publishers, because they start to get a reputation, and viewers or readers will start to learn what to expect, and they will begin to trust that particular publisher with their time. It's worth my time to at least look at what they're publishing because it's something within the boundaries of what I want to see. And social media is starting to get to the point where they're realizing that if they don't do this, they're going to lose all of the people, or at least the people that they think matter. And that's what'll happen. Like if a really good group, a group that let's say a news group has 1 billion viewers, and they start posting stuff that's offensive to those viewers, but hey, it's free speech, and those other things were things that some random person said, those billion viewers aren't going to say, oh, well, that's fine with me, it's free speech, so I understand, I'm going to watch it. They're going to say, no, I'm done, I'm going to stop watching or reading what this particular publisher is putting out. And so it's really got the angle not only of impact on their finances, but also on the particular viewers and readers who just got to see something they didn't want to see. And if they start to think there's a pattern of that, they're just going to leave. So now I'm going to go into why this is starting to become an issue, I think, for legislation. So one of the nice things about social media is that it lets ordinary people publish what they want, and an algorithm would decide who see it. And so I think it really made it possible for certain important issues to come to light that I don't think would have ever come to light. For example, shared parenting, equal custody, the father's rights movement, which I know is controversial, but now it's out there with like 600,000 people in it, at least on the Facebook end. And then there's other groups like the guardianship groups and some of that stuff published on Netflix in the form of movies and documentaries. And then you've also got like the whole Britney Spears thing, which was all in the media, but it also had a gigantic social media following. So you're starting to see now that social media is creating a way for things that maybe don't fit into corporate media's agenda to actually get into an area where I think the governments are realizing this is something that's huge, and ordinary people are starting to see too that this is something that's huge. Everyone's talking about it. And as the title of this video is Limits of the First Amendment, I'm going to go into the limits of that. Here's the problem. Now that everybody knows about equal parenting and shared custody, and now that everybody knows about guardianship issues, conservatorship issues because of the Britney Spears thing, we'll just use those two examples. Why isn't it just magically fixed? And the reason why is because making something into a huge issue that everybody talks about is only the beginning. That's just the first step. Once everybody is aware of the problem, where does the actual change occur? The actual change occurs through statutes, rules, and case law, which is something that I've drilled into you guys for a long time now. So if everybody's aware of all these problems and the government's starting to do some things in some states, sometimes, depending on which state it is and depending on what they feel like doing, why isn't it 100% fixed? And the reason why is just because everybody is aware of the problem doesn't mean everybody knows how to fix the problem. And so a lot of ordinary people think, hey, if millions or hundreds of millions of people are talking about a problem, then it should just get fixed. There is no magical thing that once a certain number of people know something's a problem, magically it just fixes itself. There are people a teeny tiny percentage of people, probably 1/100th of a percent of people that are involved in actually forming up the statutes, the rules, and the case law that will actually control what occurs in these situations. This is the point of this video is um, not only is this a limit on what these movements can do that they're going to start to realize, and they're going to start to pivot, and that's probably not going to be good. My suspicion is that a lot of these movements are going to pivot into money making, because that's all they really can do once they get to the point where once these organizations and groups realize that they've already done what they can do and they've made everyone aware of the problem, they can only really continue to exist or cease to exist. And if they're going to continue to exist and everybody knows it's a problem, all they can really do at that point is pivot into money making and hopefully use it in a responsible way to further solving the problem, which I doubt they'll do. Really, it's a problem of, if there's not an incentive for the government to fix it, they're not going to fix it. And if there is an incentive for the government to fix it, they're only going to fix it to the extent that they have to fix it. They're not going to perfect it. They're not going to get rid of all the problems. They may do so in a way that they stop losing as much money as they were, or that is not as offensive to the public as it used to be. But they'll probably still leave flaws all over the place so that the money-making industries can continue to operate. What I mean by that is, I guess if you're talking about child custody and divorce, then the family law firms and such. In any event, this isn't one of those videos that's got a happy ending. I just thought I would like to bring people, not necessarily an unhappy ending either. I just wanted to bring people to sort of a journey that I went on, realizing the limits of the Constitution and the limits of the First Amendment, and how people have taken it a little too far. I mean, it's one thing to have the right to say what you want without being criminally and civilly liable, and then it's another thing to be almost entitled, a sense of entitlement that you not only have the right to say what you want, but you also have the right to force what you say to be published by these other platforms. And that's technically what it is. You know, when you say something, that's just you, but when you post it to a platform and it publishes and an algorithm distributes it, I mean, it's publishing. I think there's rules out there that actually I don't know about that protect social media giants from being sued for defamation. Ordinarily, if what you say is defamatory, you can be liable for it. But if my understanding is that if some conventional news organization publishes it, then they'll become liable for it too, even though you said it. My understanding is that there's some kind of protection in place when it comes to these actual groups like Facebook, Twitter, and even like Yelp, these reviews, where individuals who post things don't necessarily cause the platform itself to become liable civilly. And that's kind of its own issue. There's debates on that as well, frustrating people who feel they've been damaged by these posts. In fact, some of the cases on our Nevada judges have followed these types of cases where there's an attorney in one case who's upset about social media posts and is claiming it's defamatory. Interestingly enough, he hasn't tried to sue the social media giant. He's just suing the person who posted it. And that kind of just lends credence to my suspicion that there's some kind of law that protects them. In any event, I kind of wandered a little bit there, but I did want to say that, yeah, it's one thing to, have the right to say what you want. And then it's another thing to think that these social media giants are obligated to spread what you're saying to all of these people who may or may not want to see it. And that's really what it comes down to, is I think that a lot of the free speech stuff that's floating around with regards to people being upset about the changes with Facebook and Twitter is people just not realizing that in a weird way, they kind of come off like the telemarketer. It's like, yeah, you can call, but it's annoying. Stop. So it's like the telemarketing of social media, and I think that those platforms are going to try and figure out how to solve that problem in a way that changes things big time going forward. I know that when I publish stuff to our Nevada judges, I do control what I publish. I don't just publish whatever random people want to publish, because guess what? Other people don't want to see it. So I have to figure out how to publish what the audience wants to see, not what everybody wants everybody to see. That's one of the things about all of this, these huge changes, is I hope that people can understand that yeah, you have rights, but other people have also got rights, and maybe other people don't want to hear what you have to say. And so all of that, guys, that's the point of this video. I hope that it makes sense, especially the portion where I talked about the limits of the First Amendment, because um, you know what, before I end this video, I will say that our Nevada Judges is not a First Amendment organization. It's not. It's focused on effectiveness, not on let's get everybody's opinions and blast them out there. There's already a lot of groups that already, they do that. I don't need to just do another one of those. I try to make something different. And so it's not an organization that's about free speech at all. So I can totally understand what the Twitter CEO was saying when he said we're not bound by the First Amendment. We don't, that's not the primary objective. Maybe a secondary, maybe a tertiary, may not even matter. With regards to our Nevada judges, it is not even a consideration. It's just not. It's trying to actually affect change, and to actually affect change is not necessarily consistent with letting any random person say what they want to say about a judge. It's just not. So there are groups out there who I think are becoming a little bit more blunt about this. Groups, companies, organizations that are starting to say, you know what, we don't think that the First Amendment is part of the business plan or the plan generally, part of the agenda at all. And if you don't like it, too bad. And guess what? That's fine. I mean, it's still a wonderful thing. It's still a wonderful amendment. It still has a huge effect on society, and it's still very important. Shields people from being thrown in jail for saying what they feel is going on or what they want to say. So really powerful, really important to, what makes America America. But it's got limits. It's not the end all be all. And like I said, guys, you can probably apply this to a lot of the other amendments out there as well that are really great, really important to, the founding of the country, but they are not the end all be all, and that people may have taken those amendments way too far, way outside the boundaries of their original intention as well. It's one thing to have a right, and it's another thing to be entitled. Those are two separate things. I hope that this video is useful to people. I always wonder about these, but whenever I get the comments and I look at them, people seem to be really appreciative, so I will keep doing these types of videos. As with my previous videos, guys, feel free to post any questions you have down in the comments below, or you can send me an email at admin@theproperperson.com.